Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to Making Sense of Cryptocurrencies and NFTs. We have an incredible program today with some fantastic panelists who will be joining us. Just some brief housekeeping items. We've muted all of your sound and your video, although Zoom has this glitch where some people can still get in. So if you see yourself on the screen, you shouldn't be there. Just hit the stop video button so that we can just have the panelists and myself on the screen. With that, what else can we tell you? There is a Q&A button at the bottom. If you have a question that you want to put to the panel, please submit it there at with the chat button, and we will be recording, or we are recording today's program, and we'll be sending out a link to everybody at close of business today. With that, I'm going to screen share for just a moment. I thought we might set this up with an interesting commercial. Let's see if we can pull this up.
I call it the wheel.
I don't think so. What does it do?
It rolls.
Yeah, so does a bagel, okay? A bagel you can eat. One of the worst ideas I've ever heard.
Brother David, behold, the fork. I got 10 forks right here, baby. Am I right? Yes.
My lord?
What is it?
A toilet, my lord.
A toilet? You expect this court to do its business inside? We're not animals. We go outside like humans.
It's coffee. It's new.
Oh, it's awful.
You don't like it?
I'm all jittery and feel like I got a big job coming on.
Hancock, you sign first.
No king! Gentlemen, have you taken leave of your senses?
The people shall have the right to vote.
Even the stupid ones?
Yes.
Stupid people vote?
Yes.
Edison, can I be honest with you? It stinks. Does your wife know what's going on here?
She knows I go to work.
You're wasting your time, and it's sad. You might as well put the dishes in the shower.
Hey, Catherine, what's cooking?
We're putting a man on the moon.
Are you out of your mind? I can't even get tuna without celery. Nobody's going to the moon, ever.
Why not?
It's too far. It's far. It's really far. It's far.
我々の未来はポータブルミュージックです。
バカか、バカか。わかるだろう。わかるだろう。わかるだろう。
出ていけ。
你哪有了か？怖いんだ。哦，no no，巴达里卡一直冒烟的时候，巴达里诺，巴达里。
Like I was saying, it's FTX. It's a safe and easy way to get into crypto.
Yeah, I don't think so. And I'm never wrong about this stuff. Never.
Franklin!
Good old Larry David. Well, let's talk about the world of digital currencies. It's generated savage polarization. There are those who believe it represents the liberalization of currency flow without the intermediation of regulatory authorities or banking controls. And it really represents thereby the socioeconomic shift of magnitude in line with the Industrial Revolution and the development of the internet. To others, it's the hybrid child of Charles Ponzi and Elizabeth Holmes, a technology hype on steroids which will inevitably crash and burn, taking with it the financial fortune of those taken in by its improbable promise. Yet, announce our panelists today. The mercantile universe is paying attention. Governments, global financial institutions, mega corporations, and technology behemoths are beginning to invest time, energy, and money in testing the cryptocurrency waters. Some even argue that blockchain technology will eventually eradicate traditional and accepted channels of commerce and information sharing, in the process tailoring life's transactions to a closed, individualized loop between the buyer and the seller, if it's a product or a service, and between the sender and the recipient for just about everything else. We've got three wonderful experts today joining us. Douglas Borthwick, Chief Business Officer of INX. Jose Rasco, our very good friend, returning again to help us today, Chief Investment Officer for HSBC Global Private Banking and Wealth Management in the Americas. And Chris Roselli, founder and CEO of iData T. Gentlemen, welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you. Before we get into this subject matter, Jose, can you just give us a brief update on Ukraine and the situation with the banking universe as of where we are at 10:06?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, hello to everyone. And I think by way of introduction, I think, clearly the world has changed and it's changed materially. And I don't think there's any to overstate that, right? I think we're going to be in a very different geopolitical backdrop. This is going to change what the central banks can do. It's going to change what the fiscal policy response will be from governments. And it's certainly markets are repricing all those potential outcomes as we speak, right? Now, I think regardless of what happens on the grounds, markets tend to buy on the rumor and sell on the news. And the fact that markets are down on this news tells you that this is more pervasive than they thought. It is more invasive than they thought. And therefore, they are repricing, market participants are repricing based on what they thought, not where we were. So if you look at the S&P, if you look at their different indices, a lot of the sectors that were down, housing, autos, things that are interest rate sensitive, they had priced in a lot of Fed activity. They had not priced in a lot of this. And this geopolitical event, I believe, is going to change the balance. And I think it's going to have a direct impact on these markets, because not just traditional markets, the crypto markets as well, because one of the things that's being bandied about, and I don't think it's going to happen, but they're talking about removing Russian banks from the SWIFT system. If Russian banks can no longer do dollar-based business in the SWIFT system, that is a major hit to the global economy. It is a major change in the way we do business. And whether it's food, whether it's energy, those things get transacted through the banking system. And I think you will therefore see a lot of new entrants and a lot more activity taking place in the crypto markets, which will be both positive and negative, right? It'll create a lot more volume. It'll create a lot more volatility. So I think those are important factors to keep in mind to try to just tie it all together,
Excellent. Douglas, let me start with you, and I'm going to ask the same question of you, Chris, if you would just give us a brief 25-word or less, if you can, sort of summation of your involvement with digital currencies and a little bit about INX.
Sure, thank you, and it's great to be here. INX did the first ever IPO in the blockchain. We raised around $85 million from 7,250 investors in 74 countries. The average age was 42 years old. It's the first time someone's ever gone to the SEC, done a full prospectus offering. With that, we then started a cryptocurrency trading business that exists right now in, I think, 35 countries and 34 US states. We also have a broker-dealer and ATS for specifically digital assets. We raise money for folks in the real estate business, but all across all businesses in digital securities. Through those raises, we do it through, really, you set up a website with an Invest Now button. People get excited about it, they learn about it, they then invest, and then we list them on our ATS, alternative trading system. We trade 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year, both cryptocurrencies and digital securities. We report to FINRA, the SEC on the securities front, and MT licenses or money transmitter licenses to states. We see regulation as being the way forward. We like to work with regulators in the passenger seat rather than the rearview mirror.
Okay. And Chris, same question, if we may. Background?
Great to be on. Thank you. Nice to meet everybody. I'll tell you where we really focus a lot of our energy. We're really focused on entertainment, as well as how personal data actually, what personal data represents today is currency, and it has for quite some time. And what we are doing within our business called Identity is turning personal data into currency and allowing people to be empowered. So this kind of obviously underlines the fact that, we've obviously been sold quite a bit through advertising and the models of social media and everything else in Web 2, and Web 3 actually provides the opportunity for this decentralization and cryptocurrency to, effectively sell my data directly to a broker or a brand. So we literally kind of are leapfrogging over by empowering people with their personal data. That's the purpose of our business. We call it digital real estate in a lot of ways because it literally is a digital footprint that we empower people, brands, opportunities. We had a meeting with FIFA, which is one of the largest, influential companies in the world that are trying to figure these things out. So it's, I wouldn't say it's a wild, wild west, but there's huge opportunities, and there's certainly a lot of companies looking for what to do. A lot of entertainment people looking for what to do. So we sit right in the center of that spectrum.
I'm going to ask the three of you just a sort of a summation question right up front. We can get this done in very, very briefly, but starting with you, Jose, the future, and I'm going to use just the generic term for me, blockchain technology, the future, success, failure, just your thought on it.
Oh, look, HSBC has been invested in blockchain for a while, years, and we sit on numerous boards. We've done a lot with our venture bank in the blockchain space, and that is sort of the underpinnings of a lot of these markets, okay? And blockchain is basically a method of transaction through which, basically identities are secured, and changes in contracts and changes in conversations can be actually, you create a chain of company information going from one person to another that gets verified from point A to point B. Now, the difference is, and it's important to make this distinction, in traditional blockchain, and blockchain is going to be huge in real estate, contracts, all kinds of things, right? And I'll let Doug and Chris speak to the other parts of it. But one of the key things is, in traditional blockchain, the users are not anonymous. They are known agents to each other. So they can communicate from point A to point B. And I am changing the contract between you and I, Alf. I'm acknowledging that. You acknowledge the change, and you send back and that's how you create these chains, and therefore you get the security in the contract and in the system. So if the users are known, then that traditional blockchain system works. If the users are unknown, that's where you end up with these other currencies where people don't know each other and it's anonymous, right? That creates more volatility and, and a certain amount of risk, but also upside.
Same question, Douglas, and Chris, I know you're both going to speak optimistically, but in your words, the future of blockchain.
Well, I'll give you Jay Clayton's words. He was the SEC commissioner. He said a year ago that in 3 to 5 years, all assets will trade on the blockchain. So that means $115 trillion of equities will trade in the blockchain, $124 trillion of fixed income will trade in the blockchain, all commodities will trade in the blockchain. It will become the center of commerce. And what that's going to make is it's going to make things a lot more efficient than they are today, where there's plenty of third parties that get involved with any sort of transaction. In real estate, you always have that title broker that gets involved. You don't need title brokers anymore when your title's sitting on the blockchain. But there's a lot of different things that are happening in the world that could be much more centrally managed on a blockchain than the way that things are traditionally done. One great thing about a lot of these blockchains are they've never been hacked. There's databases all around the world that get hacked constantly, and data gets pushed here or there to the next place. But I think the blockchain it gives you a very secure environment to be able to hold data and information, and it's something that's verifiable. That's what I see blockchain, and that's where I see the future.
And Chris, same question.
I resonate with that, Doug. Seriously. It's essential to our business. It's also essential to entertainment. Think about the music industry in terms of licensing, right? Blockchain is essential to that. A lot of companies are going in that direction, whether it's a new record label or it's an artist, right? It's really one of those things that provides so much opportunity to hold that title and also to monetize it and get very creative in monetizing it. It's also essential to personal data, right? That obviously is a commodity and we want to protect that. And we don't want that hacked as well. Those databases, they're huge. They're hacked all the time, but these opportunities on blockchain make it something that is incredibly protected. And also that does empower people with that. So the life cycle of the model really is blockchain is the foundation to actually make this happen, right? And then we can get into, of course, NFTs and why that's important.
Jose, back to you. Please treat us as the lowest of the dummy class. Assume that we're trying to understand this. And by the way, the writing on this subject is so confusing, and there's so many buzzwords out there that it's a spaghetti soup of confusion. Let's just go through the basic terminology. Blockchain. Define.
Well, that's what I tried to do before, and I think it's basically the underpinnings of the digital world. And to Doug's point and Chris's point, this is going to be the future. If you think back, what did the internet do? It eliminated the economics of geography. I could sell record albums, remember those? I could sell those anywhere in the world. It didn't matter. The economics of geography changed with the internet, right? And not only that, but the scalability of business changed. Marginal costs are zero on the internet, right? That's what blockchain is going to do. It's going to change the way contracts are executed, transactions are done. And I think, we hit on a couple of those things already. And I think it is absolutely essential to the future of the digital world. And remember, I don't want to get into the metaverse and all that nonsense, but if you look, because that's we can go on for 3 hours, Chris, on that. But I think, Alf, if you look at where we're going, digital products and services and the digitization of financial markets, which Doug has alluded to more than once, it's already coming. This is not 5 years out. This is here. It's happening and it's coming. So prepare yourself because it's coming hard and fast, and blockchain is the foundation of that house.
So let's go to cryptocurrency. Let's pick the top 2 or 3 players: Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc. Again, define a cryptocurrency.
Well, if I could just make one quick point, and I'm going to bore the hell out of everybody because Doug's already laughing because I'm going to go into economic history here. So everybody get ready to fall asleep. If you look at the beginning of capitalism in Europe, the lords of the manor, right, decided, wait a minute, there's no way you're going to transact with Doug when you're living on my land. No. So they enclosed their land using fences, and they had people guarding those fences. And this is called the enclosure movement. And that land became my realm. My castle was in the center of it. And I had coin of the realm. Okay. And I would pay people in coin. And then if people wanted to transact with me on my world, they could do it with my coin. If they wanted to go to Chris's world, there was no exchange mechanism, right? So that created these different coins of the realm in different parts of Europe. And that's where you had the beginning of mercantilism, capitalism, and those coins liberated people to trade and exchange goods and services, right? And that is, not to continue this little metaphor, but we're at the beginning of that in the digital world. And I think when you watch the pundits on TV talking about the yen versus the dollar, and then 5 minutes later, they'll have somebody talking about Ethereum versus Bitcoin. We're going to get to a point very quickly here where these worlds are going to collide, to quote Seinfeld. And I think that's not too far away either. So that's an important point, I think, here in terms of the crypto world.
Which industries, to any of the panelists, Douglas, let's start with you. Which industries do you think will become or are becoming early adopters of the technology? Where is the action right now?
Entertainment, media, sports, real estate. That's the early adopters, the first to really go out there. People with large communities and followers.
Why those 4 again?
Oh, you know what? If I have 1 million followers and I want to raise money, I could go to VC or private equity and give up equity, or I could go to my followers and I could raise capital from them directly and not give up equity, but rather give a percentage of future profits. And so it's very exciting to folks right now that have significant followers or followings, or have a landmark property, or have certain things that before people couldn't get involved in. It's, there's a democratization of assets that's going to be happening with blockchain technology. And democratization of assets, generally the early adopters are going to be the ones that are at the forefront of industry that have significant amounts of followers.
So stay with real estate for a moment. A major transaction, a major investment, such as a piece of real estate, how would that work? How does that physically work in the blockchain world?
Well, I think you're looking at it the wrong way. I'll tell you what real estate developers come to me about. Some people have a building, and that building is owned by 3 members of a family, and one member wants their cash out. So what do? You tokenize the building. Essentially, you make 1 million tokens, and these 1 million tokens are related to the ownership of the building, and you list it as a private transaction through a Reg D or Reg S, and then the member of that family can then cash out, and the general public can buy that token from them. Other guys come around, they say, look, I've got a selection of multifamily homes. I've got $300 million portfolio. I want to tokenize this, and I want to give the ownership of all of this, or maybe the ownership of the rental income, to new investors. And then they sell the rental income to the new investors, but they own the underlying of the principal, and they get the principal appreciation. I get other guys coming to me that say, I want to raise money because I want to buy houses in this specific area because it's a brown zone, and we need to do housing for underprivileged folks. And by doing a token raise, they can then sell to folks that care about that, the underprivileged folks. They can sell them directly to these people to then have them come in and build the properties. And then they have ownership on the future revenue stream that would come from, let's say, a town or principality that's going to end up paying the rents for homeless folks living in these buildings. But there's lots of ways that tokenization opens up possibilities, certainly for funding. What it means is you can take buildings that normally, regular folks like myself or Jose can't afford maybe to buy, let's say, 324 Park Avenue, the whole building. But we'd sure like to get the appreciation over time. And if you can get just a little piece of that, a fractionalized piece of ownership, that might be something that you want to have. And so, opening up investment opportunities to all sorts of different folks, it's good for folks that want to invest in things that otherwise they couldn't afford outright. But it's also good for people that want to raise capital, in that now they can go out there and they can raise capital from folks all around the world.
What about the more traditional real estate transaction between buyer and seller? I want to buy a home in San Francisco. I want to sell a home in San Francisco.
Well, you see that, the first ever real estate transaction was done by one of my colleagues, a guy called Alan Silbert. You're probably familiar with his brother, Barry Silbert, who runs GBTC. It's probably something that people hold in their portfolios. And that was for I think it was a piece of real estate in Bora Bora. I think that, there's some news came out today that there's a real estate agency that now accepts Bitcoin. I think that it's more of a gimmick for someone to come out and say, we accept Bitcoin for these buildings and we're selling this property, because it gets you some attention in the press and it gets you a front page on the New York Post. But right now, that's not really how things are getting transacted. Bitcoin isn't being used necessarily as a transaction currency, but more as a way to preserve wealth. You haven't asked me, but the reason I got into cryptocurrency is I spent a lifetime devaluing currencies around the world at Morgan Stanley, where I ran a foreign exchange derivative desk, and I ran a proprietary trading desk at Merrill Lynch. And the US dollar is always seen as the least dirty shirt. But the dollar's been weakening in front of us for years, for our lifetimes. Our parents, our grandparents would always say to us, look, buy real estate. It's a great investment. It's not that real estate's a great investment. It's just the dollar went down all the time. When I first worked for Jose, I think I made $30,000 a year out of undergraduate school. Today, you hire an undergrad in the finance industry, maybe it's 150,000. Are they 5 times smarter? Or has the dollar gone down by 5 times since I was a young kid coming out of college? And the reality is that Bitcoin allows people a fractional way to sort of preserve your wealth. And so not everyone can afford to buy a Picasso or a penthouse apartment in Manhattan, but they can afford to buy a little piece of Bitcoin, just a little piece, $20 worth, $100 worth, and soon it adds up. And as more and more people get into this sort of fractional lifeboat, then they find that their wealth goes up. You think about the cost of college. The $10,000 I put into Bitcoin in 2014 more than pays for my kids' college. And so I didn't worry about college fees going up because Bitcoin was going up faster. And I think that what Bitcoin does is it offers people all around the world, regardless of your income, your race, your race, or wherever you come from, it's a way to preserve wealth. Now it's a long-term race, but then again, so is real estate. People could have bought real estate in the 60s in New York City. In the 70s, they thought it was a disaster. It's going to collapse. Maybe that's where Bitcoin is today. It's just come up, 50% from its highs, but it comes back up again. And I think that cryptocurrency, especially Bitcoin, is something that I see like that. Now, Ethereum, different story. Ethereum I see as gas. It's a gas fee. It's like gasoline. Now, when it comes off in price, I want to buy a lot of it because a lot of things trade on the Ethereum blockchain. And when something moves around on the Ethereum blockchain, it needs gas. So I railed up my strategic petroleum reserve by buying Ethereum because I know in the future, a lot of people are going to have to use that to move things around on the Ethereum blockchain as all these assets move onto it. And
those are the two primary currencies, are they not right now? Bitcoin
yeah, they're
and
the
Ethereum?
two primary currencies, yes. And that's the only ones I really concentrate on. I don't put a lot of thought into anything else.
To your point, I saw a stat that said by the year 2030, U.S. federal tax revenues will be exceeded by mandatory outlays on entitlements and interests. Therefore, what happens to the dollar by 2030? So you're saying get it a Bitcoin instead of gold, for instance, because that's how you can preserve the wealth.
Well, let me ask you a question. Let's say you put $10 million into gold. How are you going to move that when you move from one house to the other? If I put $10 million in a Bitcoin, it's in a zip drive and I can put it around my neck and I can carry it from one place to the other. The portability of gold is horrendous. The portability of Bitcoin is phenomenal. Okay. And so you have an asset that you can save something in. It's fractional. You can buy it. You can sell it. It's liquid. And at the same time, it's portable.
Hey, Al.
Yes, go ahead.
Great point. And Chris, you have to start jumping in here.
I'm about to hit him on NFTs in a second, but go ahead.
Yeah,
listen, quick point. The other thing that I think to add on to what Doug just said is gold. Who on this call doesn't know what gold is? Everyone knows what gold is. How many people on this call know what Bitcoin is? So to Doug's point, to further Doug's point, we are at the beginning of this little trek that is going to take decades to get this market, this digital market, to where it's going to go. And so it's not about volatility, because everybody's going to tell you Bitcoin's very volatile. That's really not the point. You're at the beginning of a new market. When you were at the beginning of a new market, like the internet, I didn't care in '94 what people understood. I said, you need to buy some of this because it's going to go up. That's what you need to know. Is it going to be volatile? Yes, but it's going to go up.
Look at Amazon in the early stages of Amazon. It was a disaster, up, down, up, down, up, down. And then as adoption hits, well, then it kind of moves in one way rather aggressively.
And I've got a number here that the increase in crypto values went from 25 billion to 250 billion to 2.5 trillion and have now stabilized at 1.5 trillion. Not a bad rate. Chris, to you, talk to us about NFTs. What are they and how are you involved with them? And what's the benefit?
The benefit, we see there's benefit all over the place. And NFTs are actually being used throughout so many industries. The entertainment industry, selling NFTs to raise capital, tokenization, like Doug was saying, right? This provides an infrastructure to hold title for a piece of content, for movies, for music videos, for objects, for pieces of art, for access. We're working on a program right now where we're working with an artist where we're selling NFTs to give access to things like VIP to a club or something like that. So it really kind of, provides a huge opportunity for entertainment. And Doug, like you said, if you have 1 million people following you, that's an audience that you can always tap into. And tapping into that audience, you have a certain percentage of people that engage, and then you can really kind of bank on a lot of those things. So whether you're putting a program together with NFTs as an artist saying, hey, I'm selling these NFTs at a strike price of, a value of $1 and I'm issuing 1 million of them, you can do that. And if your audience is into that, you can make $1 million within minutes. And that's happening all over the place.
Can you give us a concrete example of a successful NFT?
A successful NFT is
in your space.
In my space. Snoop Dogg, for example. We all know who he is, right? Some appreciate him, but we all know who he is, okay? He has an audience that engages with him. He puts something out. It's a scarcity model. He releases 10,000 of them at a price. They get purchased, and then they get sold on a secondary market. Like
10,000 of what?
NFTs, basically digital art. In this case, it was basically digital art. We're working with another artist that has a music track that is unreleased that they want to give title to through NFTs as well. So it's like buying rights to an album. It's very similar. So whatever happens from the point of purchase on through, there's a big waterfall. It gets second and third, we got a secondary market, you got OpenSea, you got all these other platforms. What we focus on with them is launch your own platform, sell the NFTs there, transfer that into a secondary market, and then all of a sudden there's bidding wars all over the place because there's only a certain amount issued. I mean, there's a big value, obviously, to blockchain. I think it's the most fastest adopted technology that we know as human beings, faster than the cell phone, faster than the internet, right? So all of that, it really plays well into the entertainment space and it empowers artists. Oftentimes what happens in the record industry is they want to own everything and control everything. Now the artists are basically in control. So it provides a big opportunity.
Everyone that's on this call knows what an early stage NFT was because they probably get kids, and your kids are spending your money on your credit card all day long on Roblox buying new skins. But they're buying these new skins and then they forget about the game, and you've lost $10,000 in the course of a year from your kids buying a new skin or a new gun or a new this or a new that. But once they stop playing the game, the money's lost. With an NFT, you buy it, you can sell it. You can sell it on to something else. It's not lost anymore. But our kids understand NFTs. They've been trading them for a while, but they haven't been trading them. They've just been buying them and spending your money on them.
I've got a question here. Why are NFTs called non-fungible tokens?
Well, there's only one of them.
That's right.
Hey, Alf, if you don't mind, can Chris elaborate a little bit? And I know I don't want to divulge things that we can't divulge, but I know you're working with artists on art collections, and I don't want to get into the whole metaverse thing, but just in terms of digital media rights. And we can go to the same concert, Chris, you and I can pay $100 for my ticket. You can pay $1,000 for yours, but there's a reason you're paying more because you've tokenized it, you've got an NFT, and you've got rights that I don't have as just a viewer, right? I'm in read-only mode.
Chris?
Metaverse is important, and I don't want to leave it out, but I will just say metaverse it lends itself to a deeper narrative, and it gives everybody a front row seat. And if you just package it up like that, then you can talk about any artist in the world that wants to do that, because we don't sell albums anymore. We sell tracks, and now we can actually sell albums and experience, but NFTs are the opportunity within there. Huge opportunity. So buying NFTs, sometimes they give access to different levels of content. And that's a better way for the artists to actually create these revenue models out of thin air. It's like, it's always been access. So you want early releases to this content. You want to hear it a week before the public does. Great, right? You can actually take that, and now you can actually own the asset. Imagine owning a library from the Beatles, right? Like that's something, that's huge. In terms of art collections, we're working with some amazing artists right now that have these amazing physical collections that we're digitizing and turning into NFTs and packaging these things up and creating basically different runs and different issuances of these pieces of art, different levels, of course. We don't want everybody to, we don't want the small market. We want to kind of open up a lot of markets, give everybody opportunities to get an NFT at a certain price. But obviously, there is a scarcity model. There's only a certain amount that you want to issue. But again, it really puts entertainment in the driver's seat for a lot of creativity, opportunity, and driving tremendous revenue.
Chris, final question. Is it fair to say the primary motivation for NFTs is appreciation, value appreciation? It's financial gain?
Well, it depends on who you're talking to. I've had all the conversations, and those enter almost every one of the conversations. Everybody's interested in how much revenue can I drive through this track. I like to look at things more of the long term. We want to be able to actually scale these things out for years and drive continuous revenue through these NFTs and these opportunities. Some artists are like, I just want to get 20 million and cash out. Okay, great. Right. So you can build both of these models. You can build them for short-term gain, or you can actually, put together the asset where it continues to grow over time. I mean, like Doug said, it's like the blockchain really lends itself to a long-term, and that really is kind of where we try and push a lot of the artists and a lot of the assets that we deal with. Is these are long-term goals for us. People are always going to kind of want to recirculate these things. Those secondary markets, those are huge, absolutely huge.
Jose, back to you, if I may. Who are the major global players, the names that we would recognize now that are either silently or publicly or overtly invested in blockchain technology? Can you just throw some names out there to give us a sense of how much establishment?
I would say industries, right? Banking, legal, just finance in general, real estate. I mean, anything that's got a contract associated with, and Doug touched on the trading markets and the financial market. That's a whole level of complexity lower. Any contract business, and Doug, you tell me, you're the expert.
But brand names, Jose, brand names. We know Goldman Sachs, we know HSBC.
Yeah, but look, we sit on like 20 different boards. So it is going to be pervasive. Any brand name that's out there is going to be doing contract work with using blockchain as the underlying technology to start.
I heard Walmart. I heard, in fact, Walmart is doing that. Is it not?
NFTs and the metaverse.
Yeah, I'm sure Walmart will, but the NFTs are about to become everyone's bread and butter. They're going to understand it because your driver's license will be an NFT. Your passport will be an NFT. Your vax certificate will be an NFT. Your college diploma.
So what do you mean by that, Douglas?
Well, right now you carry a piece of plastic, right? And it's in your wallet or your purse. Soon it's going to be held in an electronic wallet that you hold on your phone, like a MetaMask wallet. And that's where it's going. And now if I give you a fake ID, a piece of plastic, and I give it to the tour man, he can look at it and say, this is fake. If I show him an NFT on my phone, he'll be able to scan it and realize, get confirmation on the blockchain that it's real.
Got it.
No more fake passports, no more fake IDs, no more fake vax certificates, no more fake anything. It's the verification that the NFT can give you just by scanning it and just taking a look on the blockchain and making sure that you are the owner and this is yours.
Because it's a closed, verifiable loop.
That's right. Unhackable.
But let's talk about that. Let's get into some security issues because we're all saying unhackable. In actual fact, there have been examples of hacking. Ethereum has been through that, if my reading is correct. No?
I think your reading is incorrect. What you're talking about is the hacking of exchanges. So an exchange keeps something in a wallet and the wallet is hacked, but not the blockchain itself. And
really?
So a lot of exchanges make it in the news, or you hear that someone lost all of their Bitcoin investment in a waterboarding accident, or in they had a wallet that had something in it and someone managed to get into that wallet and take something. That's not hacking the blockchain, that's hacking the wallet. And so some wallets, some people give up their keys to their wallet and they hand it to a scammer. Once that scammer has the keys, they can take whatever's in that wallet. It's sort of like, think of a wallet as being your safe deposit box. Now, if you hand the keys to your safe deposit box to someone because they con you out of them, they can take whatever they want, but they haven't necessarily hacked the system. What they've done is they've hacked your wallet. Now, there are things called smart contracts, and smart contracts are making it such that the wallet becomes largely irrelevant. There's a standard, and this is getting real technical, sorry, Jose, ERC 1404. That says that it won't move out of your wallet if someone was to hack your wallet unless the other wallet it's moving to is whitelisted. It looks to the blockchain and makes sure that where it's going is a good place. Or if you were to lose it, then that's fine. We can revoke it from the lost wallet and reissue it to a new wallet. Now, this is a standard we came up with the SEC because you can't lose your 401k or IRA in a boating accident. So when securities are out there and they're actually digital, you can't lose them because you lost your digital wallet.
So how do I protect my digital wallet?
Well, you've got to be pretty smart. I think there's things called hot storage and cold storage. Hot storage is like, you have it on your phone and it's sitting there and you're ready to transact. Cold storage is where you're maybe keeping it at a custodian, or you're keeping it on something that isn't connected to the internet at all. So there's lots of different ways that you can do it. Now, self-custody is something that you're probably not familiar with, but if you talk to anyone under 30 years old, they self-custody. You ask them, who custodies your securities? They say, oh, Robinhood does. It's in my phone. And that's the difference between my generation, or our generation, folks over 50, and folks under 30. Under 30, they couldn't care less about Fidelity or Morgan Stanley doing their custodian or HSBC because it's all on their phone.
The dark element, gentlemen, the dark web. is not blockchain technology or cryptocurrencies more developed in that space? Does it tend to have a sense of illegitimacy attached to it, or is that just a headline, a spurious headline? Jose? Douglas, go ahead, Douglas.
I was going to say that the nice thing with crypto is you can actually point to exactly how much is used in the dark web or how much is used for illicit activity because it's verifiable on the blockchain. You can't tell me how many dollars are used illicitly today because nobody knows, because there's absolutely zero trail. You know, when people, you know, steal something on like Bitcoin, every time they move it from one wallet to the next, to the next, to the next, we can trace that. If you give me $1 million in cash, good luck tracing it. And so we can point to exactly how much, you know, cryptocurrency is used for illicit activity because we can watch it going through wallets, but you can't do that with the dollar.
Not to mention, out there are now insurance programs where you can actually buy insurance on your crypto, right, and prevent certain things from happening. So that's also something that's emerging. But to Doug's point, blockchain, the very definition of blockchain is both users know each other and they are confirming what each other is saying to each other. So it is impossible for someone to step into the middle of that.
Let me go back to cryptocurrencies for just a moment. I'm just going to read you a couple of items here, which mean everything to you, but not a lot to me. Vulnerabilities, I call them. Miners attacking exchanges, front running by miners, cartel risks, frequent inflation bugs, regulatory risks affecting prices, news stories on hacking and theft, pump and dump schemes, which we know have taken place. These are all vulnerabilities of the technology. What's your response to that? You're smiling, Chris.
You know what? I think Doug's a better person to answer this question.
Doug, I'll ask you to respond.
You know, the phrase pump and dump comes from equities, and now it's being used for cryptocurrency. You know, when the Model T came out, guys that made horseshoes said, you know what, this is way too fast, this thing. And I think someone needs to stand in front of the car and someone needs to stand after it to make sure we're all safe. When the cell phone came out, for the first 10 years, nobody cared about it. It was too big. It's a brick. And then the 10th year, they said, you know what, it's going to give you brain cancer if we put it next to your head. There's always going to be someone that's lobbying against a new technology. And they lobby, and it goes for about 10 years. That's about the lifespan. You can Google this, you know, Google mobile phone use in the United States. But when that new technology finally manages to break through and the lobbyists, you know, fall to the wayside, then it takes off. And I'd say we've gone through that 10-year period right now with cryptocurrency, and that people understand it. 64% of the US right now believes that Bitcoin and Ethereum are here to stay. And I think that that's a really big number, given that 64% of the US also owns equities. So it's sort of like, this is a big number. 64% also, I think, is the amount of people, percentage of the US that's invested in real estate. Like, this is, you know, that's a big number to get to. And so you've gone through that period, but, you know, I have a brother, he's a CFO at Bank of America. And I think that right now he's probably pretty negative on cryptocurrency. Why? Because, you know, I don't think Bank of America has something to sell to people where they can make money on cryptocurrency. In fact, what it does sometimes is it takes away from the banking system and shuts down a lot of different businesses. And so until the bankers can figure out, you know, what's going to be in it for them, I think that it's going to be poo-pooed by, you know, regulators and others. But, you know, we're working with regulators aggressively to tackle a lot of the misconceptions that are in the space. And there are people that are registered with the right authorities, like ourselves, that follow the rules. Now, there's some offshore that don't follow the rules, but I think that's always going to be the case. You know, there's Swiss bank accounts that are out there, and that was a problem. The US government today looks at an electronic wallet as being like a Swiss bank account. There's a lot of wealth there, but they don't know that someone has that wealth, and they can't tax it. They'd like to know what you have there, and they'd like you to be able to, you know, self-identify it with the IRS. I think what's going to happen in the next couple of months is there'll be discussion about how if you want to trade cryptocurrency onshore in the United States, you got to go through KYC AML with a registered institution, and you have to whitelist your wallet so the government knows, you know, kind of what you have in there.
You do think that'll happen?
Well,
they will ask for that.
If you want BlackRock to start investing in Bitcoin, then it kind of has to. BlackRock has to know who they're investing with and who's on the other side of their transactions. They can't deal with anonymous people. And this is where, you know, even DeFi, if you look at Uniswap or AirSwap, you know, these folks, Right now, you're dealing with anonymous people dealing with anonymous people. That doesn't work for BlackRock. So what they'll do is they'll create pools where there's pools of anonymity for offshore and pools of folks that have gone through KYC and AML for onshore. And so the technology will remain, but just regulatory fences will be put around it.
I want to go to you, Jose, and get into DeFi, which is decentralized finance. And of course, the argument is that it refers to activities that disintermediate financial services by migrating them to permissionless blockchains, cuts out the middleman and the cost associated with that. Talk about that, if you will. Sort of give us a little more meat around the bones on DeFi, and also talk, if you will, about cross-border remittances as well. That money going from here to Mexico, et cetera.
Well, two separate topics. And I think on the cross-border side, to Doug's point, working at a bank, which a lot of people have made the analogy, is sort of like working in the buggy whip factory, watching these new vehicles go by. And I think that's going to change. And when the regulators get involved, you will then see that banks can then adopt the new technologies, because to Doug's point, we have to be able to authenticate who the users are between point A and point B. And you talked before about fraud. Let me ask you a question. What do you think would happen to you if you walked into our bank on Fifth Avenue today with $1 million in cash in a briefcase? You know what would happen? We would call the FBI, or we would throw you out the door. We would not take that money, because there is fraud in every single business. That's not the question. The question, I think, is a lot of people are focused on the negativity and the fraud in these markets, when in fact you have to look at the opportunity and how the regulators are getting their arms around it. And that's what Chris and Doug have been talking about, is how these markets are going to become very commonplace, and they are going to not only embrace the current economy, and this is where I don't want to, not yet, because this is probably a separate phone call, the metaverse. If you haven't read Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, read it. If you haven't read Ready Player One, read it. It will give you a visualization of where we're going. And there will be a digital world where you will be able to transact not just current goods and services, digital goods and services. So Alf, I think the point is these currencies, NFTs, and lending mechanisms like DeFi, which is basically peer-to-peer lending essentially, are going to allow you to transact. And when you look at an environment where the Fed is going to raise interest rates, albeit more slowly now because of what's going on in Europe, right? Why do we still see real optimism in the world of housing, real estate, etc.? One mechanism is going to be the digital markets that are going to open up tremendous access to capital without that middleman. Think back to 94, 95. We were all around when the internet and people said, wait a minute, I don't need the middleman. Chris Roselli's my wholesaler. I don't need him. I can sell my products from my factory directly to Alf. Cut out the middleman, B2B. And then we said, wait a minute, I can sell directly to my consumer. I'm going to just get Doug to buy from my factory directly, B2C. And these digital currencies and all these other products will allow people to do that from the business and the consumer business. So
I IPO'd my company on the blockchain without a bank.
I'm sorry, you did what, Douglas?
We IPO'd our company without a bank involved whatsoever. We worked with the SEC. We created a digital security, registered security, just like Amazon or Nike, with a prospectus, and we sold it online to people that were interested in our project. And again, we didn't sell equity in our company either. We sold 40% of our profits in the future, if we ever have any. Now, you can't do that in the traditional financial system, but we managed to do it using the digital wave. And I think this is, and the amount of capital that I have looking to get raised in the way that we did it, that now working with our broker dealer, is astounding. And it's really because we've figured out a way that, yes, we can cut out the middleman. Normally, if you do a raise on an IPO, maybe you'll give up 7 or 8% to the bank that's raising the capital for you. That's a big slug of money. If you can raise directly from the general public, why wouldn't you?
Okay. Gentlemen, take us, we're at the 10-minute mark here. We're running an 8-minute mark. We're running out of time. Let's just go to the future, if we may. Take us 10 years out. What does it look like? First of all, is there universal acceptance for the regular person on the call right now, how does it impact our lives? What does it look like? What does it feel like? Jose, start with you.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to have a choice. If you look at, I had the pleasure of meeting with Akon the rapper. It was the most bizarre lunch I've ever had because I am the most uncool person you'll ever meet. And sitting there in the Beverly Wilshire Hotel, the looks that I was getting from people were bizarre, but he is cool and plugged in. And if you look at what is happening, this is becoming pervasive. And it's like the internet in '94. If you don't know what it is, you better find out because it's coming hard and fast. It's going to change the world of business, how we transact day to day, not just contracts, but everything. And I think you will see increased use of coins, tokens to help monetize the current economy, but more importantly, where we're going. And that is really the fundamental truth of it. And Doug talked about two things we haven't touched on, which maybe for another call, the fractionalization of things, right? Income streams, shares, and Chris's favorite, the metaverse. Monsters, and that's going to make this stuff ubiquitous, no question about it.
Douglas, same question.
You know, your children, if they're between 10 and 15 years old, already spend 5 hours every day on the weekend, probably in an alternative universe, and they're buying and selling things with a digital currency that's coming from their game. They understand this and they deal with it every single day. In the next 10 years, as I said before, you'll have your driver's license, all of your different certifications for anything in your life will be as an NFT sitting on your phone. You'll do self-custody of your securities. You'll do self-custody of your currencies. You'll have USDC or something similar and a digital yen or digital euro on your phone when you go on vacation, and you just go in there and you'll zap it and boom, the transaction gets done. You'll in essence, you'll hold the title to your house on your phone. Everything's moving into this digital realm. And I saw the question that came in the chat is sort of like, well, what happens if the communication systems go down and there's no power, no internet? Well, if there's no power, no internet, you can't access the bank either. So I think that, yes, all of our system anyway has moved in such a way that technology has made it that we're very dependent on technology, and we'd move into the Stone Age if there was no electricity in so many different things in life. So we can't use that as being the reason for not moving forward. I think we just have to move forward. But digitalization of everything is happening, and it's happening very, very quickly. If the SEC believes in 3 to 5 years, all assets will move onto the blockchain, and that was a year ago, now it's 2 to 4 years. Back in 2018, 1 million people had something called a MetaMask wallet, and they used it daily. Today, it's something like 22 million people use it on a daily basis. If you look in Africa, I don't know if you ever traveled to Africa, everyone transacts using their mobile phones. Even today, most of the people on this call probably uses their mobile phones and Apple Pay to pay for things. That's how you get your Starbucks coffee. We're moving into digital, whether you're aware of it or not. When was the last time you remember putting a stamp on a letter and sending it? When was the last time you remember actually sending a letter in the mail? You don't, you use email. Technologies come, we push against them, and then we embrace them. And I think that blockchain and cryptocurrencies are exactly there. They're in that hockey stick area now, where we've had that 10 years of people talking about it. And remember, 5 years ago, it was a guy in his mother's basement with 4 followers on Twitter that said Bitcoin's going to 20,000. Today, JP Morgan's saying it's going to go to $150,000, and the richest man in the world is talking about how he owns it. We're not talking about people that are conspiracy theorists in their basement anymore. Now we're seeing it embraced by Visa, PayPal, pretty much every brand that you know.
Douglas, what will not migrate to blockchain in our lives?
Well, your pet, your dog, that's something you're always going to be stuck with and have to walk yourself. But I think other than that, pretty much most transactions that happen in our lives will happen on the blockchain.
Chris, 10 years out?
Well, this is the moment of empowerment. So it literally goes from Web 2, where everything in terms of data is recorded and everybody's getting different advertisements, whether they're watching the same program. Web 3, everybody can be empowered to become the platform like a Facebook is, or Meta, so they call themselves right now. So basically a DAO, or decentralization of everything, is really the empowerment of everything. So you can use a studio to produce a movie. Now everything is literally going to be kind of decentralized in a way where everybody can produce, as long as you have an audience, you can have a revenue model. And that's what this provides. Metaverse, of course, we'll talk about that at another time, but it lends itself to basically the new form of entertainment and immersion, okay, in our world. We feel as though the websites, the way that they are now, in the next 10 years, they're all going to be metaverses. The fashion industry is already there. We're already transacting NFTs for actual garments that have not been produced yet, right? That are literally digitized and they look incredibly real. So really what the next 10 years is how we launch things in technology is always through entertainment. It's the same thing with this level of technology in this new form of the internet, which is blockchain, Web3, call it what you want. But this really is an opportunity for there to be more voices and more opportunities for entertainment and culture to be basically distributed and monetized. That's how we see it.
Two final questions. Douglas, quickly back to you. Define, if you will, and give us the utility of a token.
Well, tokens can be both securities and utility. I'll tell you about the INEX token. It's a security in that you get 40% of our profits in the future. It's a utility that you can use it to get discounts on daily transactions. And so, you know, there's now what you've asked is a question that the SEC is constantly asking, and there's something called the Howey test that makes a definition between what's a utility and what's a security. Gensler recently came out in front of the Senate and said that a lot of the tokens that are trading at Coinbase or elsewhere are actually securities and should be deemed as such. So there's a lot of discussion about what is utility and what is a security. A security in general is something that you expect to get some gains on in the future. A utility is something, I think, like your American Express points that you can use to pay for things, but you don't expect much of a change in the price.
Okay. Jose, you mentioned two reference sources. Could you tell us those two books again, please?
Oh, yeah. Oh, look, they're fictional books and they're weird, but they're going to help you visualize where this is going. Snow Crash by Neil Stephenson, and I happen to have had the pleasure of meeting him a couple of times. And what he's done is he's taken the internet and he has taken trends in, like Doug talked about the automobile. He's taken trends in technology over time. He's taken the internet and extrapolated to a ridiculous degree.
Snow Crash by?
And the other one was Ready Player One, which has been made into a movie, but the book is better as usual. And important to visualize these things, you know?
Gentlemen, I listened to you today and you've convinced me this does have the impact of the Industrial Revolution. If we take it out to the extent that we're talking about today, that's unquestionable. I want to thank you. I want to thank all three of you. It's there's still a lot of confusion, but we've got a little bit of more clarity today. I'm not going to put your email addresses out to the audience at large because you're going to be inundated. But to our audience, if you've got a question of any of the specific panelists, email me back at LuxeSF and I'll get that question through to the panelist, and hopefully we can set up an offline conversation that way. I just don't want to put out email addresses willy-nilly if we can avoid it. Jose, again, thank you as always. You are our guide, our Sherpa guide. Douglas, it's been a pleasure to have you, and we're so delighted to see the success of your organization, your company. And Christopher, your excitement and your passion is exciting and wonderful to us as well. So to that, we thank the panelists. We thank our good friends at HSBC. Yes, there will be a recording link coming out this afternoon. Be on the lookout for it. It'll come out through Eventbrite. Check your spam folders. I get people say, I never got the email. Well, it's in your spam folder. Hopefully with blockchain, we won't have spam folders to worry about too much longer. It is now exactly 11 a.m. Pacific time. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all very much. It's been a pleasure to have you. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.